everyone fired up? Fired up? Ready? All right. Thank you all. I am Michelle Witte. I'm the Executive Director of the League of Women Voters of Minnesota, and want to welcome all here today. We have our league members, partners, guests, and we're so excited that you could bear out through the tornadoes and the... Oh, is it not more? Okay. I'll ask if we have more volume, can you turn it up at all, or should I turn it up? All right, we'll see. Okay, are we getting better? No, Kathleen says no. How's that? Oh, hey. I do feel like a rock star when I've got this big mic here. Okay, good. All right. Yes, so today we are standing up for a healthy democracy, which absolutely, which means we're also standing up for healthy communities, because that's what it's all about. And we're so excited to participate with all of you here today to continue to build a strong legacy for all Minnesotans where everyone belongs. So I do want to say, too, we are taping this, so it'll be up on our YouTube. So I know a lot of people were worried about the weather, so if they didn't make it here, it'll be available for everyone, as will the actions afterwards. So people often ask me, my most number one question is, why does the LWV act on issues? Well, aren't you just about voting? Well, let's see what happened after Minnesota ratified the 19th Amendment and expanded voting rights for women. I have the original program, well, not the original, a copy of the original program from 1919, which is over here. You can look later. At their initial organizing meeting, the new Minnesota League of Women Voters gathered, along with Carrie Chapman Catt, to talk about food supply and demand, American citizenship, child welfare, the unification of laws concerning the civil status of women. Why? Because women did not fight for the right to vote just for the privilege of voting, but rather for the justice they hope to seek as a result of now being at the table, having our voices heard on important issues affecting our planet, our country, our communities. They knew that the health of our democracy rested on the health of our families and the governmental structures that allowed for access to care, food, housing, education, and the protection of civil and human rights. And they knew that the way to ensure a lasting democracy was through active participation by all people living in our country. So today we continue to honor 105 years of our members, people now of all ages and genders, learning about and debating important issues, acting on policy solutions that continue to provide for healthy families. Our actions remain nonpartisan. It is not partisan to defend the U.S. Constitution. I don't know. It is not partisan to stand up for state laws. It is not partisan to advocate for clean water and access to food and housing. It is not partisan to stand up for free speech and human rights. We will always have differences of opinion, right, in how to best meet the challenges of the day. But let us all remain united in our respect for open debate, the right to protest, and the value of civic engagement as is present in this room today. Okay, I want to see who's in the house today. I know the weather, we lost some people. But we didn't lose, and we never lose, first of all, is Duluth. I know Duluth is in the house. Duluth took a bus down. Woohoo! Okay, if you're here from anyone else in greater Minnesota, I know Rochester's behind me, I think up top here. Rochester, St. Cloud, you're in the house. Absolutely. Okay, how about all our suburban leagues? Where are you? You're here. And of course, Minneapolis and St. Paul. Oh, very good. Excellent. So we now have, since January, now that we have a very new, easy way for members to join, we went from 2,300 members January 1st to 2,544. So we have already grown by 250 members. If you haven't renewed your membership, please do so because it's really easy. And of course, we've also had between 80 and 100 people show up for our Fired Up Fridays. Every Friday, when we're not doing this or something, in the last several months, to help you learn what's going on, learn how to process all the things of the day, and take action. So I am forever proud of who we are. Who we are is also honored here in this rotunda with the fabulous plaque to honor our founding mother, Clara Euland. Her plaque is over here. Again, Clara, along with now Nellie Stone Johnson, are the only two women who have plaques in the state capitol. So, but I love her dedication because I think it underscores who we are. May her memory save us from all pettiness, all unworthy ambition, all narrowness of vision, all mean and sordid aims, as there was no weakness in her words, no weariness on her brow, no wavering in her loyalties, so there be none in us. As she fought ever without malice and without hatred, so may we fight. So today we are doing that, and we want to tell you one more story because I want you to feel who's been in this building, right? I mean, kind of is always awesome. Also in this building, I want to honor another powerful suffragist who lobbied for and passed what is believed to be the first major bill put out by a woman in the State House after the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920, Nellie Griswold Francis. Nellie Francis lived here in the Rondo community, and she founded the Every Woman Suffrage Club in 1914, the only black women's suffrage organization in Minnesota. Francis knew that voting was one of many civil rights denied to the women in her community. Francis and other club members attended the Minnesota Women's Suffrage Association convention in 1916. She believed in working with white suffrage organizations and enlisted white women to champion the causes of black women. So when the 19th Amendment was passed in 1920, alongside the horrific lynchings of Elias Clayton, Elmer Jackson, and Isaac McGee in Duluth, Nellie took her newly earned right to vote, 1920, people, and she took her right to be a part of her government directly to the Minnesota Legislature, where she is credited with writing and playing a major role in passing with near unanimous support an anti-lynching bill. So take a minute, right? And soak that in, right? You're here in the same building as Clara Euland, as she and her fellow suffragists helped usher in the 19th Amendment after 72 years of dedication and hard work. You're here with Nellie Griswold Francis, who took that right to vote and put it immediately into action by passing an anti-lynching bill. People working together, organizing, advocating has always made the difference in securing and advancing our rights, and you are all a part of that here today. You have no idea what the notes you might write, the calls or conversations you might have with representatives will produce today. And you will likely never know or be thanked or get a plaque, right? But you are in the best of company with the women and men who walked alongside Clara and Nellie and changed the world for us all. So take that with you today as you go around the actions. Okay, I now want to introduce you. Thank you, yes. Woo! Yeah. I know when you were coming out, you were like, it's going to rain and storm. Do I really want to do this? You did it, and it does make a difference. All right, I would now like to introduce our ever wonderful president of LWV Minnesota, Laura Helmer, to welcome you all here today.
Thanks, Michelle. Hello, everyone. One thing that we know for certain about the League, rain or shine, we show up. That's great. Our local leagues and our members show up in all kinds of ways. We're so proud of the work of our local leagues that they do to empower their communities and engage their members. Last year alone, our Minnesota leagues hosted 1,400 community events and member activities. We registered 15,000 voters and approximately 2,000 volunteers put in 40,000 volunteer hours last year alone. Yeah. Here at the Capitol today, I want to give a special shout out to our lobby and observer corps. These are our trained volunteers from across the state who support LWVMN's work at the state capitol by reporting information about what's happening at the legislature, helping to lobby, and actually giving testimony on key issues. Thank you, Lobby and Observer Corps, for helping create a healthy democracy for all. And the League itself can't be everywhere and act on all matters. So another hallmark of the League is that we teach and support people to be advocates on their own behalf on many issues within their own communities. Members should feel empowered to figuratively take off your League hat, or I guess your League t-shirt, literally in many cases, and advocate for the issues important to them and their communities. As an example, for me, that has taken the form of advocacy in the affordable housing arena for almost 15 years. As we know, available and affordable housing for all is, of course, another necessity for healthy and strong communities. Together and as individuals in our communities, we are making a true difference. We're also fortunate to be part of a national organization which is mobilizing, advocating, and litigating on federal issues in a very visible way right now. Just last week, a federal court judge issued a ruling in League of Women Voters et al. Versus Trump et al., temporarily blocking the US Election Assistance Commission from implementing a provision in the president's recent anti-voter executive order. This provision would add a requirement to show a passport or similar document proving citizenship when registering to vote via the federal form. While the case proceeds, this injunction preserves the status quo. Would-be voters already affirm under penalty of perjury that they are US citizens on a federal form. This was a major victory for voters across the country. And to quote our chief counsel, "The League hasn't and will not back down. The League of Women Voters will continue to fight to defend our democracy from those who seek to restrict it." We can all be proud that nationally, locally, and today here at the state level, League members are continuing to power democracy and preserve democracy through our active participation in days like today. Thank you all for showing up.
I'm so lucky to work with Laura and all our board members. How many of our board members are here today? I know we got a lot of state board members in the house. Thank you all. All right. Let's get into it. You're fired up? Ready to go? Okay. All right, so you all figured out, you people in your chairs, you have folders, right? You have folders, or if you're not in the chairs, there's folders back at our tables, which lists our speakers, our tools for action. Sam Strukens, our Civic Engagement Director, will explain all of that to you when we're done with the speakers. So you're also welcome to get a free t-shirt, which many of you have. Thank you, thank you. You also have "What does democracy mean to me" signs, and it's blank. And you got a marker because you're supposed to fill it in, right? So sometime during today, fill that in because we're going to take a picture at the very end of what democracy means to you, okay? All right. Now, please also welcome and stop by our partner tables today for more information and engagement opportunities. A shout out to our fabulous LWVMN team back here. We've got Amy Perna, Mary Broad from our office. We've got LWV Upper Mississippi River Region, one of our interleague organizations, right? Great actions to support clean water. LWV Climate Change Task Force. This group meets monthly to learn and take action on many issues affecting the health of our environment and communities. So stop by there for info and action. YMCA Center for Youth Voice is in the house. Where are you guys over there? Woo! We're working more and more with youth, and especially in that youth civic engagement space. So excited. Second Harvest Heartland is here. We're so excited, a major state leader and to resource to support greater connection between farms and food supply. Minnesota Clean Elections, you'll hear from them today. It's one of our major partners to defend democracy. And of course, the fabulous and forever, we hope not forever, I mean, you know, ERA Minnesota. Woo! Minnesotans for equal rights. We're still here. We're still here. Our forever partner in securing a constitutional amendment to protect rights for women and for all in our communities. Hard to know why that's still the case. But last but not least, I'm so excited. One of the partners we have, many other people. How many of you are also members of the AAUW here in the house? I know there are many of you. The Association of American University Women are great partners, and they also have state chapters and members and have been on the front lines of equity for women over 100 years as well. And recently I've had the great opportunity to work alongside AAUW Minnesota State President Kelsey Witte to launch a state membership drive and write a column. We had a little column in the Star Tribune, and we invite Kelsey to come to the stage.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. I'll start. I'm Kelsey Witte. I use she, her, they pronouns, and I am currently the president of AAUW Minnesota. As Michelle said, we're one of the nation's oldest women's advocacy organizations with 22 branches and almost 2,000 members around Minnesota. I want to start my remarks by thanking the League for inviting us to partner on this important event. This is just one of the ways our organizations are working together, and I'm hopeful we can continue to partner long into the future. As a nonprofit, AAUW cannot be partisan, but that does not mean we are values neutral or non-political. AAUW seeks to empower women and girls by championing their success in higher education and pushing for bold policy solutions to create lasting change. They fight to remove the barriers and biases that stand in the way of gender equity. Importantly, we recognize that this advocacy work must be intersectional, inclusive, intergenerational, and empowering. And just in that, I think I have said over 10 words that the current federal administration is trying to ban. But no matter how afraid they are of these words, they can't ban diversity and they can't stop change. It's a part of human nature to learn, to grow, and to evolve. This week, AAUW hosted our annual meeting in Austin, Minnesota, where we not only reaffirmed our commitment to our values, but we expanded on them and adopted resolutions that would empower our branches and members to use their voices to advocate for change. For a majority of this country's history, women could not vote. Racial and ethnic minorities could not vote, and we have the disparities to prove it. A thriving democracy cannot be based on exclusion. It requires engagement from all of the people it seeks to serve. We will not cower to federal pressure and threats. Our annual meeting theme was Cultivating Hope Through History, and I cannot think of a better message right now. As Michelle and I said in our joint op-ed, we've been here before, and we know how to find light in the darkness. History has shown us how to successfully fight back against restrictive and harmful policies, and it is not by staying silent. It's by forming coalitions with others and using our voices for collective action. This is how change happens. This is how we make progress, and this is how we will win. Thank you so much for being here, and never doubt that your voice is a powerful tool for change.
Okay, I'll tell you, when we originally submitted our editorial, the title was The F Word. They didn't use that for female. Okay, I'm just female. What were you thinking? Come on, people. because female is one of the words that was taken out of the search queue for NIH. So there you go. Anyway, I would like to also say we are exactly on time with our schedule. I'm just saying this is amazing. All right. So we are now going to get into some more fabulous issues that we are so many members involved in. And that first one is that little issue of access to clean water and air, right? And stopping the effects of climate change, which are absolutely essential to protecting the health and the economies of our communities. We're so grateful to have with us Janet Keough, retired research director for the US EPA Duluth lab, with us today all the way from Duluth this morning with the great LWV Duluth delegation to talk with us about the impacts we could expect if we lose the EPA's Great Lakes Toxicology and Ecology Division laboratory based in Duluth, which is under threat of closure. So welcome, Janet. Get right up in there.
I'm gonna step up here so I can see you. I'm a short person. So I'm not quite sure what you were expecting, but I have to say that I am a self-confessed left-brain science nerd. And I want to talk to you about the threats to science today. A little bit closer. Testing. Does that work? The November election has led to movements and actions against science, against facts, and it stretches from medical research to education to protection of human health and our environment. Federal agencies are eliminating scientific staffing and programs and laboratories and grants that serve the public in so many ways. We're seeing major cuts to the National Weather Service, cancer and vaccine research, education research grants, basic science by the National Science Foundation. Everywhere you look, science is being put on the back burner. Science in Minnesota is being impacted with a cancellation of grants to tribes for important climate research, university grants going away and leaving graduate students hanging, and federal science programs being decimated through firing personnel and early retirements and cutting back their funding. So one example of the threat to science in Duluth is a concern about the US Environmental Protection Agency eliminating its Office of Research and Development. ORD does purpose-driven applied science to support the agency's mission of protecting human health and the environment. And that is the agency mission, at least it was when I was working there. The ORD Duluth Laboratory is one of the 3 first research laboratories established in 1970 with the new EPA and the development of the Clean Water Act. The Duluth Laboratory is the primary freshwater research laboratory for the nationwide EPA. Scientists in Duluth conduct cutting-edge science for the public good, attempting to make protecting and restoring our water resources more efficient, more effective, smarter, and with a rigorous science grounding. Duluth scientists use extensive quality control, peer review. They do everything for the high quality. And their work is without political pressure or interference. Their research addresses priority needs for freshwater protection by the agency and for all of us. The EPA administrator is apparently considering closing the Duluth lab and other ORD facilities around the country that cuts off the agency's ability to ground its work in environmental protection in science. The Duluth EPA facility and every other federal program have great economic importance to the community. The Duluth Laboratory brings in $14.5 million a year that comes into the economy as staff salaries, contracts with local businesses, student training, stipends, and more. The people in programs are spending their paychecks in the area. They pay taxes. They're renting and buying homes. They're sending their kids to school, and their spouses are also working in the community. Federal workers are professionals who bring their public service ethic into the community through their children, their churches, their sports, their clubs, and other volunteer endeavors. The Duluth EPA situation is just one example of the anti-science, anti-fact, anti-evidence-based directions going on at the federal level. Ignorance is not going to solve today's problems or move us into the future. I do worry also about that the thirst for power and influence and votes may be active and growing in our own state of Minnesota and may impact the role of science, evidence, and facts in our state environmental, human health, and well-being programs. Budget cuts at the federal level and budget issues at the state level, as well as the idea that human health and equality environments compete with the economy, seems to me to be threatening science here too. And so this is something to watch for and work to keep science in our decisions. I want to thank the League of Women Voters for a chance to bring science into this conversation, and thanks for all you do in society.
All right, you got to use those signs. You got some signs? Oh yeah, let's put them up. Oh, that makes me feel better. Woo! Okay, very good, very good. That's great. Oh, I just feel better. All right, so support for science is also nonpartisan. Just a reminder, right? Thank you so much, Janet. I'm glad we also, again, a reminder, our climate change task force, and we partner with Minnesota Environmental Partnership on all of these issues. Please stop by our climate change task force table and get, woo, there they are, yay. A lot of other hot topics, such as reducing e-waste and the environmental impact of data centers. A lot of league members working on your behalf. All right, so now we are going to move on to access to the basic needs of food and shelter, which are clearly embedded into our LWV positions. The recent and unexpected loss of USDA funding for the successful Farm to Schools program and other programs is just one of the many new challenges facing both food shelves and farmers as we try to make healthy food available and affordable to all Minnesotans. A very special thank you to Peter Wietock, Government Relations Manager for the Food Group, to tell us more about the challenges facing our food growers and consumers. Peter?
All right, thank you so much for having us. I'm Peter Wietock, Government Relations Manager of the Food Group. And so we're a food bank that also dedicates to expanding access to fresh, healthy foods across most of the state and advocating to address hunger needs here at the state capitol and at the federal level as well. So as many of you know, the hunger relief system is under a lot of pressure right now due to some federal challenges that really threaten to undermine the safety net that so many people rely on to put food on the table. And SNAP is one of those. Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program is one of those threats that's really looming right now at the federal level. Some proposals suggest that they could slash as many as around $230 million just for the state of Minnesota per year to the SNAP program, which would be devastating for many families that are going to have to now turn to food shelves that are already operating at or beyond capacity. So SNAP is 9 times more effective at addressing food insecurity than food shelves. And so cutting this benefit is not only going to increase hunger, but overwhelm the local resources that we have in our state. On top of that, as was mentioned, the USDA has canceled funding for programs like the Local Food Purchase Assistance Agreement, the LFPA program, which provided and would have provided millions of dollars to purchase locally produced food for schools and for food banks. It improves access to fresh, healthy foods to many underserved communities in Minnesota, particularly in many rural areas where availability is often limited. Organizations statewide have really relied on this funding to establish these wholesale agreements with farmers, providing them with a stable market. And these partnerships really have been a critical source of financial stability during those early high-risk years of farming. So this was a big loss. And the good news is at the state level, there is a bill in both ag budgets, the House and the Senate, that will replace some of this funding to invest state dollars into this program. So that is, we appreciate legislators for stepping up there and helping out. The last thing I'll mention at the federal level in terms of cuts is the Trump administration also canceled funding for what's called the Commodity Credit Corporation. And this affects over 487 food shelves right now that participate in what's called TFAP, or the Emergency Food Assistance Program, basically getting free federal food to food shelves across the state. So at no cost. And so 30% of those commodities have been eliminated. So that's leaving food shelves with 30% less food available, putting even more pressure on an already strained local hunger relief system. So with federal support dwindling and also possibly more on the horizon with cuts to SNAP, state action is critical to really overcome that right now and to offset the challenges, but also alleviate pressure on our emergency food system. So this last year, 2024, was another record year for food shelves. We saw nearly 9 million visits to food shelves. That's 3 times greater than what we saw pre-pandemic. So it's gone up each year since then. So demand continues to be high. It touches all parts of the state. Talking 18% average increase from the year prior across all 87 counties. We know that rising food prices are a big driver to this, making it more difficult for folks to afford nutritious food. So without action at the state level, food shelves this session, the gap between need and availability is going to continue to grow. So our ask for legislators this session has always been to maintain last session's funding levels for the Minnesota Food Shelf Program. So increasing it by $4 million per year to the Minnesota Food Shelf Program. These grants are so vital because they allow food shelves to increase inventory of fresh produce, proteins, offer more comprehensive services, and really be better equipped to respond to emergencies as they come about. So right now, the House and Senate both have funding for food shelves and food banks in their budgets, which is great. There's a little bit of difference between the House and Senate right now. So we would love to see, obviously, the higher amount that the Senate currently has in the final budget negotiations. But this funding is just not a priority, it's a necessity right now. And so to really ensure that no Minnesotan goes hungry. So your voice is really important today to kind of lift up this important work and keep it top of mind for legislators. So thank you so much for inviting us to speak on this important issue. Appreciate it.
Someone asked me recently, well, is the league just opposed to all cost cutting? And it's like, well, imagine this. Imagine the source of income you have today, you're told tomorrow you don't have any more, and you've already spent some things, right? You have rent to pay, you have things to pay. So the other challenge in the funding is the immediate cutoff, the fact that people were promised money that was approved by Congress legally. So there are nuances to all these issues. So thank you again, Peter, very much. And also more information in your packet on the food group, supporting our farmers, and also at the Second Harvest Heartland table. Okay, now, access to civic engagement starts with access to full and accurate information. And we at LWV especially appreciate the role our community television stations play as essential partners with us in recording and distributing our candidate forums and voting information and all the amazing information they share in their communities. Thank you so much to Shannon, Slatton, Schwartz, Executive Director for CCX Media, who is here with us today to talk about threats to your funding and that of other of our local broadcasters and how we can help. Shannon?
Hello, my name is Shannon Slatton Schwartz. I'm the Executive Director of CCX Media. We are a community cable television station covering the 9 communities north of 394 and west of Highway 100. That means one of our local leagues is right here, Robbinsdale, Crystal, New Hope, and East Plymouth. I got all of them. All right. We are one of the many PEG channels across the state. PEG stands for Public, Educational, and Governmental Programming that is produced in several places. And we are here because we have partnered with local leagues of women voters on many occasions to record and distribute nonpartisan candidate forums and candidate information to many Minnesota communities. By a show of hands, how many of you have worked a forum? Volunteered there? Lots of you. Very good. How many of you have reviewed a forum before you went to vote? Even more? All right, very good. In 2024, CCX Media alone recorded and published 22 forums covering 43 races. We recorded 77 candidate statements from city council, school board, county, and legislative candidates. Plus, we covered the results of 39 local elections or levy referendums on election night. We produce unique stories and content that people cannot get anywhere else. We fill a growing news desert, and we promote government transparency at its most local levels. And that comes from recording many city council meetings. At CCX Media, we staff, record, and disseminate more than 365 city meetings each year for 9 cities. In 2024, our numbers show we had more than 54,000 views on those meetings, and that's up from where it was just a few years ago at around 30,000 views. People are tapping in more than ever. You can clap for that, yeah, to what's happening inside their city hall. It's true in the suburbs as well as in smaller communities like Dassel and Maple Lake, which are 2 of the 10 cities served by the Sherburne-Wright Cable Commission. Their commission records upwards of 228 meetings every year. It's a big part of what we do, but it's not all that we do. Stations cover local arts, local school boards, sports scenes. We share what's happening at the farmers market, the VFW, and of course at your local festival and parade. For 45 years, community television has been funded by cable franchise fees and PEG fees. But as each person moves away from traditional cable television to streaming services, our revenue is cut, and it's a big cut. At CCX Media alone, our revenue has decreased 35% since 2017. Across the state, stations have reported drops ranging from 13% to 43%. That means we are having to make some very, very tough decisions as we decide how to balance our budgets. Do we cover the high school sports event, or do we cover the city parade? Do we cut a city council meeting, or do we try to figure out if we're going to be able to cover a voter forum? Really, really hard decisions because we put out a lot of important information, which is why we're asking the legislature and the Legacy Committee for a stopgap funding measure. It has bipartisan support. Actually, Representative Nadeau, who was waiting in the wings, is our bill author, so thank you to him. We still have hope. And we're advocating for this stopgap funding. That way we can continue to work on modernizing our funding model in a few different ways while still bringing communities the news, the sports, the election information that they have come to expect from organizations like ours. In your packets today, you have a few quarter sheet pieces of paper that Sam put together for us to advocate, and she has more right back there. And so you can use those to advocate for us for being able to bring your forums out to the public. Thank you today for using your voice and your action for civic engagement and the content that the League and PEG channels like CCX Media produce together. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much, Shannon, for all that great opportunity, and all those little slips we'll talk about those later, right? All right, we're gonna actually go in a little different order quickly, and we are gonna talk first about access to Medicaid and essential services. A big topic right now, an issue where federal and state resource sharing are essential to not only ensuring the health of those most vulnerable in our communities, but also supporting the health of local government agencies and economies, which will be severely impacted by the current discussion of cutting nearly $880 billion from Medicaid nationwide. We're so grateful to have with us 2 speakers today to address this important issue, which is causing a lot of confusion and fear in our communities. Our first speaker, I'm really grateful to have with us Republican Representative Danny Nadeau from Rogers, Minnesota, who, as you heard, is also authoring the wonderful community TV bill, and Representative Nadeau is co-chair of the Health, Finance and Policy Committee and one of 27 Minnesota Republican legislators to sign on to a letter sent to Minnesota's congressional Republicans to ask them not to cut Medicaid in Minnesota. We greatly appreciate We greatly appreciate Representative Nadeau's leadership on this critical issue facing Minnesotans and welcome your remarks today. Representative Nadeau.
Hi, everyone. You guys are covering a lot of topics today, so thank you for being here. My name is Danny Nadeau. I'm just starting my second term. I represent Rogers, Dayton, and Champlin in northwest Hennepin County, and I work for Hennepin County. So unlike many people down here, I have got about 10,000 experts that I get to rely on at the county for issues that range from housing to health care and everything in between. We've got some significant challenges today, and I think that one of the pillars that the League of Women Voters stands for is for respectful discourse, continual conversation, recognizing that people are different, where they come from are different, their perspective is different, their perceptions are different, their needs are different, and their willingness and ability to live a life are different. And so I think what's happening today at the federal level and at the state level is very challenging. And, you know, the federal government is adding basically $1 trillion in deficit spending every 90 days. And so we can all recognize that maybe we need to start thinking about what's happening. In Minnesota, with MA eligibility, we are twice as much as any other state as far as spending per enrollee. We can decide whether or not that's good or that's bad, but what we can't argue about is the cost. The cost is there. Economics are a big part of our job here in the legislature, and then we come from different areas and we have different value systems. And I think, you know, the art of compromise, and I've spent most of my 3 years down here trying to find that level of compromise and recognizing that, you know, we can be hard on issues, but let's be soft on people. Let's do that. Start with, you know, we can be kind first, and we can have disagreements, and we can honestly be violently opposed, but let's do it in a nice way. The art of compromise is finding a path for common goals. When you have separate goals, it's a little difficult to find that path, all right? And I'm going to talk about the health budget a little bit, you know, because that's where I spend most of my time. I serve on health, I serve on children, youth, and families, and I serve on pensions. So I tend to, the more complicated the issue is, the more I appear to like it. But it also gives us, because they're complicated, there's so many different layers where you can actually find those places to find agreement. And inversely, you can find a lot of disagreement as well, you know. So over the past, you know, I was here last session. I was in the minority. I didn't get to participate a lot in the process, which I personally, I was unhappy about that, you know. And now we are exactly 1/2 of 1/3 of the legislature. Nothing will come out of the House without there being Democrats and Republicans finding some agreement. And that is going to be, and it's proving to be, incredibly difficult, especially in health. And it's partly because health and health care and the right to that is hard to fund. And so I'm going to bring up one issue that's kind of stopping our progress in the House right now. And it's over the last 2 years, we passed a bill that allowed unauthorized non-citizens to have access to health care. And I didn't vote for that bill from an economic standpoint. I didn't vote for it. I didn't think we could afford it. And so the projections at that time talked about in 26-27 it was going to cost about $75 million. 28-29 it was going to cost about $125 million. And you know, and that is money that we don't get to draw down from the feds. That is only covered by Minnesota taxpayers. And so I mean, people who are living in poverty, for example, it's matched 50-50 with the federal government. This is money that is 100% paid for by Minnesota taxpayers. I'm all about equality and fairness, and, you know, are there ways that we could have done things? Could we have limited it to children? Could we have put, you know, a means test to it? Could we have limited it for 6 months or a year or whatever? But none of those things were on the table last year. Now they're back on the table. We're trying to find a path through, trying to find, you know, some compromise. And it doesn't make it easier when the federal government is trying to find its way as well. The pending impacts that Minnesota could face are significant. It's $1.8 billion. There was a number of Republican legislators that drafted a letter. We sent it out. We didn't get a lot of love for that letter. But, you know, I think it's important to be honest and state the facts, and whatever happens, you know, we need to work together to try to solve those challenges, and making sure that we're delivering on you know, the needs of Minnesotans. So, you know, I wanted to come down. I wanted to say hello. I wanted to say thank you. I also wanted to just give you that perspective and recognize that everybody down here, everything we do is well-intentioned. I promise. No one is here trying to do something bad. We're trying to do as much as we can with what we have in the time frame that we do, and we disagree sometimes on the amount of investment and the frequency of that investment, but ultimately everybody down here wants to do the right thing. And there are limitations and there's barriers, but I think that the ultimate thing, and what has worked well for me, and I think it's what's worked well for your organization, is that you build relationships that are respectful with your friends and sometimes your enemies. Because if you burn the bridge on an issue that you disagree with today, there's no chance that you're going to be able to cross that bridge tomorrow. So it's all about being careful. It's about being solid, being hard on issues, being soft on people. Find that compromise. Recognize that I can't always get what I want, but you know, my job is to try to do the best that we can. So, and with that, I want to thank you again so much for all that you do.
Thank you so much, Representative Nadeau. How many of you in the House any of you in this House have served in any kind of elected government, school boards? I know a lot of us are out there, state legislators. It's hard work, right? And so we really appreciate the opportunity today to have Representative Nadeau here. Okay, now, really quickly, we also have a student who has to get to class. So I'm going to rework my thing just a minute, and I'm very excited to talk about all our wonderful stuff going on in civics. Okay, so let me get back here again. Okay, we are going to talk about access to civic engagement and civics education. We are doing a lot, which I'll tell you about later, but we're partnering with YMCA Center for Youth Voice as we work especially to support our social studies teachers in their efforts to implement new civic standards. The YMCA also has a fabulous youth and government program, soon to be led by Audrey Stenzel from Mounds High School. And today, Audrey is also here with Mary Jensen from Cretin-Derham Hall to tell us more about youth and government and the efforts moving forward to get a civic seal for high school diplomas here in Minnesota. All right, Audrey and Mary.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Audrey Stenzel and I'm a sophomore over at Mounds High School in Arden Hills. I'm here today as a student advocate, but I also want to talk about being a woman in civics. I started my civics journey in 2022 at my first Youth in Government conference, and I felt like I've been consistently shown that I'm undervalued and ignored as a woman in politics. From the first mock bill I created to having held an elected position this past conference, no matter the support I've been given, I can't help but wonder if my interactions and experiences would be different if I was a man. But that's what's kept me going. I could have quit, and I almost have, but I think of the girls who do. I think of the girls who tried to use their voice but got shot down and couldn't get back up. I've persisted to show others that I'm a passionate young woman, and the misogyny and prejudice that I've been given doesn't make me any less, but it makes me more. It made me stronger, and the League of Women's Voters pushes for women to use their voice and to vote. It's necessary that we empower and recognize this organization to create better women voter turnouts so that we are all represented in voting circumstances. The YMCA Center for Youth Voice, where I do youth in government and model United Nations, has transformed my life and has shown me how resilient I am. It's shown me that not only do we need more youth in civics, but more women, more minorities, and more people who feel silenced and ignored. Because we will never be treated equally if we do not show our craving for equality. I encourage any and all of you to find your craving for equality, your craving for hope, and craving for change. Even the smallest step forward makes the biggest difference. To any students who end up hearing this, your voice doesn't matter any less because you're young. We get told so often that we're too young to understand politics, but I think we're too old to stay seated. I cannot express enough how important the CYV is, as well as the Minnesota Civic Steel Project, which I encourage you all to look into. We're the future of our democracy. We need to find students to carry it on. Today's participants are tomorrow's leaders, and I'll never be able to show how grateful I am to be a youth advocate. Once again, I'm Audrey Stenzel, and it's an honor to speak here today, so thank you guys so much.
Hi everyone, my name is Mary Jensen and I'm a junior here in St. Paul at Cretin-Derham Hall, and I really want to talk about what the Civic Seal is and kind of what that does. So I'm a part of our communications. Oh, is that better? Thank you. Right into it. Got it. So I'm a part of the communications aspect of the Civic Seal initiative, which means I get to run our Instagram, which you can go follow at Minnesota Civic Seal if you want to. Shout out to that. And I actually have the privilege of being able to help establish this. I've been able to testify in the Senate, which has just been amazing. So this initiative would recognize students who demonstrate civic engagement and encourage others to find their voices in shaping our communities. As a young woman in this community, I value civic education in my learning process. But unfortunately, I sometimes believe that I am one in few. However, I am constantly trying to motivate others, especially women in my school, to try and get engaged in their civic education. This is why I founded a debate club at my school, which I co-captain with another girl, which I just love doing that. And I am also trying to get a youth in government program started at my school for next year. And for people to be interested in civics, someone needs to be engaged first. And we need more people and students to be interested. Today, 2/3 of young people believe that our country is more divided than ever. A majority of young people don't trust major institutions or even their fellow members of society. But the solution isn't silence to this, it's action. That's why I believe that the Minnesota Civic Seal is so important with its recognition and encouragement to students who are going above and beyond in their civic engagement. And that can be volunteering, advocating, or participating in their local government as well. As a hopeful future leader, I know the importance of being prepared to participate in our democracy, and that's why I believe every high school student deserves the tools to engage meaningfully with the issues that affect them. A Civic Seal in Minnesota would be a clear, visible recognition of a student's dedication to civic participation. It would also encourage others to get involved too. It would help foster a culture of engagement in our schools, motivating students to not just learn about civics, but to also actively practice it, which I heavily encourage in my day-to-day life. And I hope you choose to support this establishment of not just a Civic Seal, but for the next generation of civic engagement in schools. Thank you for your time.
Why we do the work we do, right? For our young people today. Okay. All right. So we are going to go back to access to Medicaid and essential services. Again, we got to hear from Representative Danny Nadeau. But now I'm so excited. Sort of a featured speaker today is an outstanding leader, is Minnesota's Department of Health Commissioner, Dr. Brooke Cunningham. Dr. Cunningham was appointed in January 2023 as Commissioner for the Minnesota Department of Health. Not a hard job, really, right, these days? I mean, and is responsible for protecting, maintaining, and improving the health of all Minnesotans. We're so thankful for you taking the time today to talk about how Minnesota can continue to protect our most vulnerable communities amidst federal tumult and uncertainty. So please join me in welcoming Dr. Brooke Cunningham.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am happy to be here with you. The sign, Stand Up for Healthy Communities, that's what we say at the department. That's what we say in public health. We are standing up to make sure everybody has access to a healthy community, no matter their background, no matter where they live. And so I am thrilled to be here with you today. And I come before you in unprecedented times. We in the public health community have a front row seat to how our closest partner in public health historically has not been, and this is not an understatement, a reliable partner in protecting and improving the health of Minnesotans. It is truly heartbreaking what is happening, to see how much damage has occurred already in a matter of weeks. Every day, we at your state health department are seeing the harmful effects of how the federal government is implementing a chaotic, ineffective, and inefficient process. You all might have heard about how we at the Department of Health and our partners, actually because of these grant cutoffs, have had to reduce their workforce. At the department, we're losing about 200 public servants. That's full-time employees, that's contractors, that's temp employees as well. That's also student workers. So for the students that just came before you, who are studying in some of our graduate schools in public health, we also had to let them go. These are dedicated public health employees who are working for the health of our state. And because we can't do it by ourselves, we have to do it in partnership. We always have many grants and contracts with community-based organizations, with local public health partners, with tribal nations, with healthcare providers, and we had to cancel over 160 grants and contractors who were directly helping Minnesota families and our partners. We had no choice. Let me tell you a little bit about what happened. I came into work on a Tuesday morning, learning that on that Monday, the federal government had rescinded over $220 million taxpayer dollars dedicated to the health of Minnesotans, retroactive to the Monday, right? No advance notice, no closeout period, not the typical way that we do the work. So these grants were yanked from under us. And that is just the start. We at the Minnesota Department of Health are heavily reliant on state funding. Many other agencies are as well. As a state agency, we are 50% federally funded because that's the system. You have a strong federal partner. You have a strong state partner. You have strong local partners and tribal public health partners. And so in the area of infectious disease, it's not 50% federally funded. It's over 90% federally funded. So when you all hear about measles outbreaks, when you all hear about deaths from measles, which we haven't had, right? When we talk about H5N1, when we talk about the emergent threat that can hop on a plane and land in Minnesota tomorrow, right? Infectious disease and public health in general is about getting out in front. And our lab is over 90% federally funded. Our lab, which is not just a resource for Minnesota, but is a resource for the region. So we try to get in front of infections so that people are not in emergency departments and in hospitals. We want to do that because we understand the stressors on the system if we don't get out in front of it. Our work with children and families, including WIC and home visiting, is also largely federally funded. WIC is entirely federally funded, so nutrition to women, infants, and children, it's over $160 million about, entirely federally funded. The same goes for chronic disease prevention and battling the opioid epidemic. Both programs largely federally funded. Even local public health that happens mostly at the county level is roughly 1/3 federally funded. So we're 50%, they're 1/3 federally funded, and our tribal partners also heavily rely on federal commitments. That means that we are all hurting right now. We are unsure of what will happen, what the future will bring. Such a shock without any warning or reasonable process cannot result in anything but negative cascading effects for the health of our communities. There has been a temporary restraining order, and there are more court hearings to come, so we continue to monitor those proceedings. But it's still not a guarantee, and I do want to address one thing that is circling out there, that this is a narrative just about COVID dollars, and the COVID pandemic has receded. But the thing is, the money was committed to Minnesota during COVID times, yes, but really to address the chronic impacts and underfunding of the public health system. We all, including our federal partners, understood the need to make our public health system more effective for the future. We must build those systems and that infrastructure to be ready for the next big pandemic. You know, we saw when we didn't have the data to act as quickly as we would have liked to. We saw when we didn't have the robust partnerships to act as effectively as we like to. And so we have to make those upfront investments. Monies to modernize our data infrastructure, including our immunization registry, to help us take advantage of artificial intelligence to control disease outbreaks and do chart abstraction, heavily manual work. Even monies for our health information exchange were on these COVID dollars. So much of what we have been doing at MDH since I became commissioner has been about addressing the chronic gaps that the pandemic laid bare. Gaps in data infrastructure and informatics, as I have stated, gaps in community engagement. We have certainly put together state budget proposals and are now in a place where even more will be needed to do public health in Minnesota. We had been able to count on our federal partner. We're not sure if we can count on them now. That is unprecedented. I recently heard one county commissioner talking about public health funding as a Jenga tower, with it all being connected. And right now, it feels like pieces are being yanked from the tower out on a whim, and those are having real impacts, both to people and to the systems because of what's happening as the federal government abdicates its duty and health obligations to Minnesotans. So some of the impacts I'd like to share more directly with you all. You all remember what we were seeing in terms of mortality rates in long-term care settings. In the response, we developed better working relationships with long-term care facilities. They got technical assistance from us. We've continued those partnerships with these monies. That technical assistance is likely to go away. Infection prevention training, capacity building for staff at long-term care facilities serving over 10,000 residents. That's what we're able to do with the monies. Funding was terminated for 3 long-term care facilities in greater Minnesota serving up to 429 residents to replace their HVAC systems to help prevent the spread of disease, to improve air filtration to vulnerable residents. Those grants were ended. We are hoping to restart some of these efforts with the temporary restraining order, but we've already been impacted. 95 vaccination events were canceled. Many of us have insurance and have access to care, but there are many Minnesotans who are getting into care during the hours of a clinic. It's just hard to do. And we canceled over 95 events. They're estimating that this will be close to 30,000 fewer vaccinations over the next 15 months. So clearly, if we lose these funds, disease tracking, the technical assistance that we provided to long-term care, the engagement that we did with communities, the assistance that we gave to homeless shelters, to correctional facilities will be impacted. And it will impact counties as well, because counties are our partners in promoting mental health. We know all of the challenges that came out with mental health after the pandemic. Community recovery, resilience within their jurisdictions. Counties had to end those. It will be hard to restart them, even if we prevail. County-based organizations that serve specific cultural and ethnic communities that were disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. During that work, those events and initiatives, again, many more tens of thousands of residents impacted. Tribal nations impacted. One tribe shared that they were using some of the funds to implement an electronic health record. That has stalled. In our health equity division alone, we celebrated the way we got to disproportionately impacted communities through COVID community coordinators. And now those grants, 44 of them, to provide comprehensive health service to most vulnerable communities, free COVID vaccines, testing in trusted spaces, health information, addressing the social determinants of health that inhibit people from getting care. Groups that were celebrated as successes, right? That the story was told. We terminated many of those partners when we canceled those grants, all of those partners when we canceled those grants, and with the restraining order, hoping that we'll be able to put some back online. Public health is about government, but it's also about partners, because government cannot do it without partners, without the people and organizations who know the realities on the ground, who help people overcome barriers to care, who are trusted, particularly when government might not be. So I am glad that you all are here. I'm glad that you all are speaking on the things that you're concerned about, speaking about your fears about what we might be losing. Certainly, we all have other roles in our lives, but this is a particular moment where we know there are going to be incredible impacts on people if we don't speak up. So thank you all for being here. Thank you all for being mindful of the health of communities. Thank you all for standing up for healthy communities. Thank you all for watching out for programs like Medicaid. Thank you all. Together we will make sure that Minnesotans can stay healthy. If the federal government retreats, well, we're going to step up and step out and stand up and say what we need. We're going to work together. We're going to be creative in a crisis. I don't know what the answers are here today, but when I'm in a room of people who are dedicated to their communities and to their neighbors and to making Minnesota one Minnesota where everybody can be healthy, that is what gives me hope. So thank you all. It's a tough time, but I thank you all for being here, and we will figure it out together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Cunningham, for leading us through such a challenging time. I remain more hopeful myself after hearing that we have such a fabulous commissioner leading the way. All right, so also part of creating a healthy community is also access to our voting rights and voting information. We're going to conclude today with a couple speakers that get to the heart of our work on a day in and day out basis. So today, an outstanding partner with us in all things voter service and elections is our Office of the Secretary of State. We're very fortunate in Minnesota to have the leadership of Secretary Steve Simon, who also has a wonderful team, including the ever fabulous Melanie Hazelip, Voter Outreach Director. Melanie has really transformed voter outreach in the department, creating access and resources that all Minnesotans can use to help them vote and serve voters. So Melanie's going to give us an update on critical issues affecting our voters. Melanie.
Hello, my name is Melanie Hazelip, and I'm the Voter Outreach Director for the Office of the Secretary of State. I've been with the office for just about 3 years now, but I've been doing voter engagement work since 2016. I actually spent a bit of time with the League of Women Voters Minnesota. They were an integral part of my journey. You all were an integral part of my journey, and without the League of Women Voters Minnesota, I definitely would not be at the Office of the Secretary of State right now. Here in Minnesota, we vote, and we do it well. And I know you've all been sitting here for a little bit, so I thought I'd get us fired up with a little chant. Very simple. In Minnesota, we vote, so when I say we, you say vote. We ready? When I say we, you say we. We. When I say we, you say vote. We. Vote. When I say we, you say vote. We. All right, excellent. Thank you. So Minnesota has long had a proud tradition of being at the top, if not the tippy top, for voter turnout in the nation. In fact, last year, we were #1 for youth voter turnout. Just about 62% of young Minnesotans age 18 to 24 turned out to vote in the presidential election, and we were this close to taking #1 for overall turnout. I'm sad to say Wisconsin beat us. Hurts, it hurts a lot. We had just under 70% turnout. Wisconsin beat us by less than a fraction of a percentage point. However, they had really good reason to beat us, and we had no business in Minnesota in even being that close. In addition to being a battleground state with a very competitive Senate race, Minnesota added 55,000 new voters to the denomination when we passed Restore the Vote in 2023. That was the largest expansion of voting rights in Minnesota since the late 1970s, when the voting age was changed from 21 to 18. So just a huge addition of eligible voters to the Minnesota voter rolls. I can't give you the details yet, stay tuned, they're not public yet, but I can tell you of those voters, of those newly reenfranchised voters from Restore the Vote, many of them turned out. And in fact, Minnesota exceptionalism when it comes to voting was on display when it comes to the Restore the Vote voters, and I know that many of you in this room spent a lot of time and energy doing that outreach, so thank you. It is a priority for our office to reach the voters who are generally not reached, whether it's through Restore the Vote or young voters, voters who perhaps speak another language, voters in hard-to-reach communities. We really prioritize trying to reach those underrepresented voters, and we know that that happens in partnership with all of you. We also know that in addition to doing voting well, we administer elections here very well. How many of you here have served as an election judge? There it is, exactly. Minnesota elections are administered with absolute integrity and security. And we know this because in 2023, there was a study by a St. Thomas professor over the course of 10 years, over 13 million votes. And out of over 13 million votes, only 3 convictions for non-citizens voting. That's less than a percentage point. That's 3 too many, but that's not an issue that we need to address. So next I want to talk a little bit about the SAVE Act and why the SAVE Act is a solution in search of a problem. The SAVE Act would be a burden not only for voters, but also for election administrators. When voters are now required to show up in person with the approved documentation to verify their citizenship, that's an undue burden on them. They have to obtain that documentation, but it's also a burden on those election administrators. Now we would effectively no longer have online voter registration. We would have these voters showing up in person at their election offices. This would primarily impact married women who have changed their names and don't have documentation to reflect their new name change. The elderly. My mom just went to get her real ID and they didn't accept the birth certificate that she had from Pennsylvania. She had to go through the process of getting an approved birth certificate from Pennsylvania. People who just have fewer resources. It's expensive and timely to get a passport or a birth certificate if you've lost it. Rural voters. If you're a rural voter and you don't live near your county election office, now you suddenly have to travel all the way across the county to get to that county office to present in person your documentation. And then naturalized citizens, for whom many have perhaps lost their documentation. So we know that Minnesota does not need the SAVE Act. We already do elections well. We also know that the United States does not need the SAVE Act. This would disenfranchise around 140 million legal American citizens from voting. And in fact, Kansas recently passed a similar law that has since been repealed because their Republican Secretary of State said it was a bad idea. They had about They had about 31,000 legal American citizens in Kansas who were now disenfranchised from the process. So I'm not the expert in advocacy. I will leave that to the League Women Voters, but I do want to thank you all for your hard work and your partnership. Know that Secretary Simon and our office considers the League one of our strongest partners. We really appreciate all the work that you do, and I know that Minnesota would not be exceptional in the area of voting if it weren't for all of you. So thank you.
All right, our final two speakers today are just so excited to say they are from the Citizens League. Has this fabulous program called Capital Pathways Intern to help provide greater access to BIPOC students and adults in their educational life to get them out and more connected in our communities and through the advocacy process. So we have a fabulous student you'll hear from, but first we are going to talk about the student who is working with Clean Elections Minnesota, because maintaining our access to constitutional voting rights certainly takes a village. And our partners and dozens of wonderful organizations work together all the time to help serve voters through advocacy and voter service. Of course, our voter service remains nonpartisan. We do not endorse nor oppose candidates running for office, political parties. We always throw that in there. But we do advocate on issues that ensure we have free, fair, accurate, and accessible elections for all, which includes working on the issue of against the influence of money in politics. So we're very delighted to have with us today Elillii Ebisso, who is representing Clean Elections Minnesota, to provide some highlights on bills this session. Is she here? I know she's here. Here she comes. Thank you.
Okay, hello. Hello, everybody. My name is Elillii Ebisso, and good afternoon. I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for allowing us a chance to speak today. It's a great day to stand up and fight for our democracy, so thank you all for being here. So, I am the proud first-generation American, the daughter of Oromo immigrants who came to this country because they believed in American values, that of freedom, fairness, and a voice for all. I was raised to believe in the beauty and power of this country, and today I'm here as a passionate citizen representing Clean Elections Minnesota, a nonpartisan, nonprofit organization dedicated to creating a healthy democracy, advocating for inclusive democracy, and educating and advocating for expanded voter access, promoting transparency, and limiting the influence of big money in politics. Thank you. Okay. And today that mission is more urgent than ever because the biggest threat to our democracy today is the outside influence of big money in politics. Billionaires and super PACs are flooding our elections with cash. Dark money groups hide who are behind their ads, and most Americans across party lines believe that major donors have far too much influence, while us everyday voters have too little. But Minnesota has the tools to fight back, and today I'm asking you to protect two key reforms that are making a real difference. First, we must fully fund and modernize the Political Contribution Refund Program, or the PCR, one of the strongest public financing tools in the country. This is included in both the Senate and House tax bill. The governor has recommended eliminating the PCR altogether, but now is not the time to roll back programs that empower small donors and reduce dependence on big money. The PCR allows everyday Minnesotans to contribute to campaigns and get their donations refunded. 9 out of 10 Minnesota state candidates have agreed to campaign spending limits so that they participate in this program. It's voluntary, it's transparent, and it's effective. It also has broad bipartisan support, and the House and Senate are facing tough spending decisions right now. We must make sure that the PCR is fully funded and not cut when we need it most. This will make the program easier to use, it will increase participation, and help candidates focus more on voters, not big donors. And second, we need to pass the election anti-bribery bill, which responds to an alarming practice happening in other states. This provision has bipartisan support in the Senate, but that is not included in the House. This year in Wisconsin, a billionaire-backed super PAC offered Wisconsin voters $100 just to sign a petition to influence an election targeting a sitting judge, as well as entry into a $1 million lottery in exchange for political actions. And he did the same last year in other swing states. That is not democracy. It's bribery, plain and simple. This bill would strengthen Minnesota's laws. Yeah. I know, right? This bill would strengthen Minnesota's laws to protect the integrity of our elections and make sure that our voices cannot be bought. And what happened in Wisconsin won't happen here as well. Because our elections should be decided by the people, not by the size of someone's wallet. As Justice Brandes said, we can either have democracy in this country or we can have extreme wealth concentrated in the hands of a few, but we cannot have both. Let's take a stand right now. Let's fully fund and modernize the PCR. Let's pass the anti-bribery bill. And let's prove that in Minnesota, democracy is not for sale. Thank you.
All right, like any good story, the final chapter is one that sums it all up and inspires you to move forward to take on new stories and actions. And today, our story about how healthy communities create a healthy democracy concludes with a powerful testimonial and call to action that I know will resonate with each of us, reminding us of the why we do this work. It would have been really easy to stay home today, right? And dry, but here we are, and this is why. Please welcome Sheridan Runs After, who's currently our Capital Pathways intern from the Citizens League and has led this wonderful lobby day alongside Sam Strukens, our Civic Engagement Director. Sam and Sheridan have put all of the work in. I just showed up. Sheridan is currently a junior at Southwest Minnesota State University pursuing a degree in Justice Administration with minors in political science, Indigenous and Dakota studies, literature, and pre-law. Tired thinking about it. Originally from the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe Reservation in Eagle Butte, South Dakota, Sheridan is passionate about advocating for Indigenous communities. Sheridan, welcome. And please know that you and your story are why we continue to do this work alongside you.
Hi everybody, good afternoon. I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you all for coming, especially with the weather. So good afternoon, my name is Sheridan Runs After, and I am a proud Indigenous woman, a student pursuing higher education, and someone who believes in the power of community representation and resilience. Being here today is not just a speaking opportunity for me, it is a responsibility. I stand here carrying not only my own story, but the strength and wisdom of those who came before me. I am from the Cheyenne River Sioux Tribe. My community is rooted in strength and resiliency, something that has shaped me into the person that I am today. In college, I've often felt like I've had to fight to be heard. I've been in classrooms where Indigenous perspectives were left out, where the history of my people has been misunderstood, if it is lucky to be mentioned at all. And still, I stayed. I am here, because I know my presence matters. I know that every step I take in this journey is also a step for those who will come after me. For many students, for Indigenous students, it can feel like we are constantly shifting and changing who we are to fit into spaces that do not reflect us, systems that were not created for us. When I think about why I'm here in this building, it comes down to one word: opportunity. But opportunity alone is not enough. We need support once we walk through the door, because representation without support is performative. Support without representation is incomplete. But when we have both, that is where community and change are created. I'll never forget a time last year when I was overwhelmed with life, stress, school, advocacy, everything in between, and a mentor pulled me aside when I was asking myself, does my work even matter? Do I even matter? Does my voice even matter? When she reminded me that my voice matters, that I am one of a few who got the opportunity to speak today. The simple act of not only being seen, but encouraged, reminded me that I am not alone. We are not alone in this. It was my community who reminded me of the impact I can make using my voice, not only for myself, but for those who may not get the chance to take up space in the rooms like this one. As an underrepresented student, I am very concerned about policies that would challenge not only mine, but my peers' access to education. We don't just need seats at the table, we need support once we get there. This means funding systems that uplift all students while listening, truly listening, to the voices of those closest to the harm, because their lived experiences are the key to our lasting solutions. I come from a community that has survived generation after generation of systemic oppression, and yet we are still here, still showing up, because that is what resilience looks like, and that is what gives me hope. Because when we highlight the voices of the most impacted, we can create a Minnesota that reflects the true meaning of community, one that is more accessible, inclusive, and supportive of all. This is how we build a healthy democracy, by ensuring those impacted by decisions are a part of making them. I believe in a future where Indigenous people can see themselves in every room. I believe in a future where no student should feel invisible in the same space where they are supposed to learn and grow. And I believe in using the power of community to get us there. Today, as we speak and engage with legislators, remind them of this. Our voices are not optional, they are needed. That by investing in our communities, we are investing in a prosperous future. And that when we are heard, we make this state stronger for all of us. Thank you.
Told you, it'd be good. All right, well, thank you again to Sheridan, all our speakers. I am humbled and inspired and fired up. So we are ready to take action, and Sam is going to tell you how to do that. So a special thanks again to Sam Strukens, our fabulous, ever fabulous Civic Engagement Director, and Sheridan for all this. All right, Sam, take it away.
I want to make sure the people up there can hear me okay. All right. Hello, everybody. Thank you again for being here. As advocacy leaders, I want a special shout out to our partners. And you all are the reason we have such trusted voices and relationships in our communities and here with our state representatives. So let's hear it. Let's give it up for our league members and our partners and all of you here today. Thank you. All right, so it's time to take action before we leave. I know we've all been here, and you all have heard from some great speakers who got you fired up. So everybody, you'll have a packet. You should have a packet where you're seated. In there, there are pre-formatted quarter sheets of paper, which we will deliver to the senators and representatives with your name and your representative or senator written on that sheet of paper. So if you feel like you want to take action on one of those issues, just write down your information, add a note if you'd like. You could put it on the back. And at the end, in just a few minutes here, you can either come up to me here at the podium, and we will walk them over to the Senate offices together, or you could just leave it with me, and I will walk it over there, just put it in the mailbox of the senators, and also to the representatives. So if you don't want to come up to me, Amy Perna, our wonderful associate director, will be right at the end as you're walking out the door. Just drop that in her basket, and we will make sure that it's delivered. So thank you all again for being here. I just want to make a few more notes, and those are that, again, we have more information in your packets on issues, and you should definitely check out the tables around. If you haven't yet, there are issues which we did not discuss today and which we will share more information on as we go forward until the May 19th end of session deadline. So please, if you haven't yet, go onto our website, find the toolkit for action, go to the place where you can just take a few minutes and send a message to your legislators. So. And again, thank you all to our Observer and Lobby Corps members, our Climate Change Task Force, and all of our local leagues who made it here to the Capitol today, and for helping to plan this event and envision all of the issues that we need to be fighting for. One other thing I forgot to mention, you all have signs at on your chairs, and they say democracy is important to me because whichever sign you have. If you filled out that one, hold it up. If you haven't, hold up another sign, or just wave your hand in the air. We're going to take a picture of all of the great messages that we are sharing today, and I will get my camera out as well. Michelle's going to do it. So, yeah, okay. Again, that's all I think I need to say today. Drive safe. We'll let you get out of here, and thanks again. Please look for more information from us, and make sure to meet your neighbor. Make sure to continue following us, and yeah, have a great evening, everybody. Thank you.